Good morning, Unity Church of Overland Park. Thank you, Fred Albers, for the beautiful piano music leading us into today's Sunday celebration. On this beautiful spring morning, we have sprung forward into a new way of keeping time. And so here we are this morning, so delighted to be joined together in spiritual community. Good morning, Reverend Carrie.
Good morning, Reverend Jackie.
You know, we are celebrating. We're celebrating a little something special. So I have now been senior minister for 6 months. Yesterday was my 6-month anniversary. Woo! We have made it our first 6 months, and I think it's I would say we've thrived. Any takers?
Yes, we have. Yes, we have.
We are growing quickly.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's wonderful. And it's always beautiful just to take a moment to pause and celebrate the good. And, our board president, Pam Enlow, always provides plants and flowers for us. You can see the pussy willows and the tulips, which are my favorite flower. And so I can't help but think that wasn't intentional. So thank you, Pam, for bringing tulips forward. And of course, this plant here, that one up there is my little project. And that was actually gifted to me from Unity Spiritual Center of Springfield, Missouri, where I used to be senior minister. So I always bring that here intentionally as bringing forward a blessing from all that has been for us. So we are joined by the great legend, Fred Albers, our music director, our wonderful associate minister, Reverend Carrie King, our ASL interpreter, Stacy Storm. And behind the scenes, we've got Magic Mike keeping all the tech together. We'll have Tiffany Crabtree join us for announcements, and Patrick Andrews will join us for the reading of the Daily Word today. Say a big good morning and hello to Deb Philby, who is on the comments of our social media, both on YouTube and Facebook. We are in full force. Right? We're in full force this morning, celebrating the joy of spiritual community. Fred, dare I ask, do you have a joke?
If you have to ask, you don't know me very well. So, today, I'm just thinking that because of the time change, there might be one or two, not very many in our congregation, but one or two that are going to skip it this morning, knowing that they can come back and see it later, But so I was just wondering, what do you call it when Batman skips church?
What do you call it when Batman skips church?
Christian Bale.
Oh my gosh.
You know what? That's kind of brilliant. I like that one. I like it. It's a groaner, but it's a good one. Yeah. Thank you, Fred. Good. Thank you. Yeah. So, whether your jokes are good, bad, corny, brilliant, clever, we see and behold the Christ in everyone.
Yes, we do.
All the joy that comes forward, all the wit and intelligence that comes forward as the perfect expression as you, and whatever flavor you bring forward, a unique expression of God.
I'll take the license.
Awesome. Yes. Fred's going to bring it forward for us. We're bona fide. Thank you, Fred. So let's get to one of our foundational affirmations in unity that affirms the wholeness that we all are. Let's speak it together. Mike, will you bring it onto the screen? There it is. And so let's step into the embodiment of all that we are, all that we claim we are, and all that we hope we will be. This affirmation together. There is only one presence and one power active in my life and in the universe. God, the source of all good. Reverend Carrie, will you lead us in our vision statement?
I would love to. Oh, let's just close our eyes and see this for a moment. Of course, then if you got to look at the words, you can. But know this truth deep in your heart. We envision a world powerfully transformed through the growing movement of shared spiritual awakening.
Oh, I can see it. And if we can see it, we can be it. And so our future space affirmation, we always like to affirm that every week to keep in mind at the forefront of our mind and our focus what our future spiritual home will look like. We'll have some news today to share about our new, in the meanwhile, spiritual home, PlexPod. But for now, let's look at the big picture of what our permanent spiritual home might look like as we bring this affirmation forward in heart and mind. We are grateful for our new spiritual home that empowers us to fulfill our mission. And now it is my great joy to bring to you the chair of the Future Space team, our board member, Patrick Andrews, to read the Daily Word.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning, Patrick.
Our daily word for today is energy. The energy of divine life renews me. How do I have the focus to achieve my goals? How do I have the strength to carry on through challenging times? How do I have the aptitude to learn, grow, and change when I'm called upon to do new things? At the heart of everything I am called to do is the energy to do it. I'm a divine being, and I call upon the power of God within me to channel my energy in deliberate ways. Divine energy is inexhaustible. Unlike my muscles, which can tire, and my mind, which can feel frazzled, The power of God within flows through me unimpeded. In prayer, I claim my divine energy and imagine it flowing through me with the force of a mighty waterfall. I'm grateful for my renewal. In our verse for today, even youths will faint and be weary, and the young will fall exhausted. But those who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. Isaiah chapter 40, verses 30 and 31. Now back to Reverend Carey for our opening prayer.
Oh, well, thank you, Patrick. Such a nice lead-in. All right. Oh, let's take that in, that energy, the energy that we have for any divine inspiration to carry forward. Let's close our eyes and sink into that awareness of the Christ within. That awareness that each person participating in this service in whatever way carries, embodies that same Christ. And we open up that awareness to an even fuller awareness of every soul that carries the Christ in this world, that is empowered by our consciousness and by an invisible beingness of force that is beyond our comprehension, yet as intimate as our heart. We allow that awareness to carry us into this service. Hopeful, joyful, embracing ourselves, embracing the world, embracing our vision, embracing uncertainty, looking at who we are, not only, well, it's always the manifestation of God in some way, but that human side of us, embracing that material manifestation of who we are in all its many forms. We love it all. We live into it. We embrace it. And so we simply open our hearts in gratitude for the teaching, for the love, for the light, and for the joy that is engendered by our time together. And we say, thank you, God, and so it is. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that beautiful prayer, Carrie. And so now is the time in our service where we bless our love offering and tithes. And drum roll, please. You will now want to take note of our new address. We have signed our agreement with PlexPod, and we are now officially PlexPod members. We have 2 offices that are getting prepared. We've been painting in there this week and measuring and ordering the right desks that we will need to support the staff in those particular spaces. So lots of exciting things are coming. If you subscribe to our e-news, you probably saw a few photographs of what's been happening this week. And please take note on your screen now. You can, of course, continue to give online at ucop.org/giving, or if you choose to mail your checks in, please mail now to 10,000 Marshall Drive in Lenexa, Kansas, 66215. Now, if you put a letter in the mail yesterday or within the last week, we will still receive mail at the Merlin address. And so don't worry about that. It is fine. But we do want you to start making the habit now of sending mail to PlexPod, which is 10,000 Marshall Drive in Lenexa, Kansas. So I'm sure you have lots of questions about what our plan is for utilizing our new space in terms of services. We will begin streaming live from PlexPod from the event space there on Easter Sunday. And I'm so excited for that all of us who are putting on the service will be there together. Oh, awesome. Mike has some pictures for us. On Easter Sunday. And that includes, we've got some photos for you. It includes 2 members of the UCOP band, James Albright, bassist, and Terry Swope, guitar player, who will join in with Fred and Willis White for our vocals. So we will light up that stage. Now, That won't actually be the very first time. That will be the first Sunday we stream from PlexPod, but our very first service from PlexPod will be Good Friday, our Good Friday service, which is called In the Garden. And that will feature Kelly Hunt and Alina Ross, and they will, it's kind of going to be a concert of a service. I will be there as well as Reverend Carrie, and we will do some metaphysical guidance through a concert of gospel hymns brought to us by Kelly Hunt and Alina Ross. It's going to be amazing. And I think just if you back up and look at the full programming of our Lenten series, it's going to be perfectly timed that we might just be ready for some of that comforting old time religion, but also to recognize that we will arrive to that service completely made new by our Lenten experience. So that will be our first official streaming from PlexPod, Good Friday, and then Easter Sunday will be our first Sunday. Excuse me. Then going forward, we will stream there on Sundays. Now, we don't have exactly the date pinned down from when we will start to invite congregants to come in and join us, but we are working on that plan. So please stay tuned. You will be the first to know. You will be the first to know when we are ready to have people come into the space. But I suspect it will take at least a month, if not 2 months. But we are watching the Johnson County numbers. We are watching the vaccination completion process, and we will keep you well informed when we can do that safely in a way that keeps us all safe. So let's put our hands together. Let's open our hearts, expand our minds into the realm of gratitude for all that each of us do to create this spiritual community. And let's speak our love offering blessing together. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. And I am joy-filled and grateful. We are so very grateful for you and for the many ways you contribute through your tithes, through your time, your talent, and your treasure to our spiritual community. We are so blessed, and you are the blessing that is us. And now it is my great joy to welcome to the screen for music this week, Amy Steinberg. She is back with her song, Golden Thread.
This is called Golden Thread. We are all connected. There is a thread, a golden thread, connecting you and me. Wherever you go, whatever you do, we can feel each other's energy, yes. 'Cause there is a thread, a golden thread, so it goes, and so it goes. We grow, that we grow, that we grow. So feel my joy and heal my pain. We are here to ride the tide together, roll with the waves. Hear my prayer, hold my heart. We are sewn together by love. There is a thread, golden thread, yeah. There is a thread, a golden thread, yeah, connecting everything, yes. Whatever you say, and whatever you pray, listening, and so it goes, and so it goes. We know that we know that we know, and so it goes, and so it goes. We grow that we grow that we grow. So feel my joy and heal my pain. We are here to ride the tide together, roll with the waves. Hear my prayer and hold my heart. We are grown together by love. We are sown together by love. We are here for love. We can never be pulled apart, 'cause there is a thread, a golden, a golden, a golden thread connecting you and me. Oh, connecting you and me. There is a thread, golden thread connecting you and me.
Thank you, Amy Steinberg, for that beautiful song, Golden Thread. There is a golden thread connecting you and me. You know, I don't know about you, but throughout this series, as kind of what has become a force of habit for me is when I hear something like that, I just immediately question, is there? Or is that the case? So there is a golden thread connecting you and me. Is there, though? It's kind of where I've come, and not to be cynical about it, but to truly take seriously our practice in this Lenten season, to forget everything we think we know about God, to forget our presumptions and assumptions that we have worked and woven into our faith practices, and really be in a state of questioning and openness. Is it true that there's a golden thread connecting you and me? It's comforting to think that. And I've got some terrible news for you today. A lot of what I'm going to talk about today is not comforting at all. At least that's been my experience of it. It has not been comforting at all. In fact, it's been the opposite of comforting. I told the group who's putting on the service today before the service started that I kind of was like, jokingly, but laying on the floor in a fetal position last night. So we'll say that metaphysically I was doing that I was in such discomfort about the content of this, and really twisting and turning and trying to present it in a way, you know, I've been saying every week, I'm not going to clean this mess up. We're just going to leave the mess here and be with it. That part of this practice is being with it. And I don't know if it's fatigue. You know, we're into week 4 of this, that I kind of want to just start cleaning up the mess a little bit. And so every time I would hear myself start doing that, I had to like stop, get out of that, put the mop to the side, put the broom to the side, put the Windex to the side, and stop trying to clean this up. And so what I was saying to myself is that I wanted to clean it up for you. But what I had to really come to is that I was wanting to clean it up for me. And so I'm in this with you. And I talked about this last week. You know, I don't know where you are, if this decentering process has been traumatizing for you, or if it's been helpful to you, exciting to you. And I've heard feedback all across the board, which means we're doing it right. It should be all of the above. And so, yes, even I have to sit with my discomfort and with my need to make this okay, because I'm thinking of people who are experiencing difficult situations right now, which technically we all qualify for because there is still a pandemic. But then on top of that, other challenging life circumstances. And I'm like, is this the message I want to bring, this decentering? But again, I keep coming back to, we must fully engage this process of truly examining what it is that we mean when we speak words about our faith beliefs and practices, what it is we mean and truly believe when we talk about the divine, when we talk about God, for the purpose of purifying our thoughts and belief system, of purifying our faith and our connection to the divine. So this isn't meant to leave us all laying on the floor in the fetal position, crying and alone and empty. That's not the end game here, so to speak. The goal is to take us through this purification, this refinement of what we believe, of what we hold to be true, so that when we meet life's challenges, when we find ourselves off center because of a diagnosis or an experience, a divorce, a job loss, all of the challenges that come to life, that we can find familiarity in the decentering peace itself, and know and trust that we can find our way out of the dark, so to speak, that we can do it because we have done it. And the point that we're doing it together in spiritual community is the ultimate point, because we are not meant to be alone. We are not meant to live life alone. So when I hear myself start saying comforting things like that, I'm going to just pause. We're not meant to live life alone. Are we though? Not, again, to be cynical and not to make light of this process, but to actually really take it seriously and to realize how much of what we do and say about God is, one, force of habit, two, passed down to us from generations before us, or if you are new into a new spiritual community, different from the one you were raised in, given to you by leaders and other people in that community, that we are truly examining what is true for our being. So last week we talked about the mystics, and the mystics wanted to go to the God beyond God, God beyond comprehension. We talked about that being their sort of brand of atheism. Well, the brand of atheism that became the response to the mystics is materialism. And you heard Reverend Carrie weave it so beautifully into her prayer. That which is manifest, that which is made manifest, that's what the materialists are talking about. Everything we can see in the earthly realm, that's materialism. And this specific brand of atheism is so interesting. One, it sounds very much like unity talk, unity speak. Okay, so that's the first clue of why I was so tormented by this week's material. And all week I've been like, well, it sounds a lot like unity. We are practical Christianity. We are about being the hands and feet of God, putting our faith to practice, being God in action. We love to quote Gandhi, be the change you wish to see in the world. And it sounds just like the materialists. And so I've been just kind of sitting with it and okay, but then also Jesus's mission and ministry was all about not, he said, I didn't come to abolish the law, I've come to fulfill it. And what he meant was, I've come to live it out. And we see that him healing, even on the Sabbath, which was against Jewish law. His whole ministry was centered around being the change you wish to see in the world, being God with skin on, being the hands and feet of God in the world. So you could say, arguably, that Jesus is a materialist. Now, you're going to say, well, yeah, but you're not going to say that Jesus was an atheist. I mean, clearly he believed in God and didn't reject God. But this is what is so kind of mind twisting and warping for me, is that the materialists, their brand of atheism isn't about rejecting the divine, isn't about rejecting God. It is about the process of coming to know ourselves. So the materialists, I'll go through kind of a handful. Some of these names will be very familiar to you: Hegel, Feuerbach, Karl Marx, Sigmund Freud. So surely you recognize at least a few of those names. And what you'll also note about those people bringing these tormentous ideas to us, these challenging ideas to us, is that they are a little more modern. They all were practicing their professions as philosophers, thought leaders, thinkers around the turn of the 20th century, so late 1800s into the early 1900s. And I think it's important for us to give that context, because during that time, religion and science were really in conflict with each other. And that's where you start to see people really leaning in towards science as rejection of religion, and as like, because we can prove this, that, or the other with science, we don't need religion, and Christianity is wrong, the Bible is wrong, it's hypocritical the way you live out your faith practice. There's scripture that has that is sort of hypocritical and conflicts with itself. If you go to this book and verse, you'll find this message, and over here you find another, and sort of as rejecting religion. And it's a little bit of what the thinkers that we're talking about today were engaging in. Now, at the very same time is when you have the establishment of the New Thought movement. The Fillmores were operating at this very same time, late 1800s, early 1900s, and establishing the Unity movement along with other New Thought branches that were also coming into development at that time. And what you'll know about that, because you're good Unity Truth students, and if you don't, now you know, is that the ideas percolating in those groups and what has become the New Thought movement was all about bringing science to use, incorporate, and justify spiritual practice. Okay, so the atheists and the critics of religion that we'll be talking about today are operating at the very same time, and they're going in one direction, and then our New Thought predecessors and founders are coming into the direction that we all know. So it's really beautiful because it creates this, like, they're actually saying some of the same things, but from two very different perspectives. And so for New Thought, the practice has become that we embody the divine, that we recognize the divine within, not God in the sky. Like the mystics talked about God, beyond our comprehension. And they're saying, well, no, the divine is within each of us. And we can use knowledge and science to study the body and how the body works. And, oh, we have cells. Well, let's talk to our cells, because the cells at the very core are made of divine material. So we can speak to the cells. This was Myrtle Fillmore healing her body by speaking through the intelligence of the cells. So this is very scientific. And Charles was very science-minded. And so I have to think that they were probably familiar with the work of the thinkers. I know, in fact, that they were familiar with some of these thinkers because they talked about them. And it's easy to forget in this conversation that the atheists are really saying something different than what our New Thought words are, even though the words are kind of the same. And so that's where it creates this disconnect. But I've got some questions for you to ask. And these are questions that I've been asking myself all week. And I'm not going to share them right now. I want you to just know that that's going to be my version of cleaning up this mess, which is not cleaning it up at all. It's going to help you create your own mess, so to speak. Sorry about that. But I think it will also help you, for those of you who are in spirit groups. And if you want to take these questions, if you're not, even to anyone who you think might be willing to be in this conversation with you, to really kind of unpack something useful here, because I want all of this, again, to be useful, not necessarily comforting, and not necessarily to take us to a place where we feel good and warm and fuzzy about our beliefs. But again, this is a refinement process. So this you could call as the science versus religion episode of our Lenten series. And, we love to say, especially today in New Thought, how wonderful it is that science has caught up. Science is caught up with us. Science can measure the power of prayer. Science can measure the power of positive thinking and affirmations. And we want to bring it all together. And do you hear in my voice and in the words I'm speaking how clean that is, how convenient and comforting that is? And I want you to hear that, because that is going to help you figure out what it is you're going to want to be with and question. Because the materialists, their whole premise is essentially that religion is convenience. That every religious group talks about their God as positive, loving, powerful. Right? Of course. We're not going to create a God who is not powerful, all powerful, who is not loving and just, who can't hold and behold everything that we wish we could have control over. So do you see that God becomes something to comfort? The presence of God becomes something that we project onto all of the ideals that we can imagine in life, all of the perfection that we can imagine in life gets projected onto the God idea, the God concept. And so for the materialist, it's like, that's fine. Have your God idea, whatever. Let the mystics have their God beyond the God. It doesn't matter. What you need to do is to bring all of that you project upon your God concept into your own being and embody it and bring it to the earthly realm. So very clever. Because we say we do that. We say that, but instead of out there and in here, we in unity say, well, we are divine. The divine is within us. So we just bring it forward. We bring it out. We express God. And so when we talk about our highest self, our Christ potential, it's the very same thing. And so our questions start to become self-reflective of this nature of our belief that is comfortable, comforting, reassuring, hopeful. And when you start tugging at that which is comfortable in us, that's where the decentering really happens. And so I was talking briefly before we started the service, and Stacy, who you see on the screen, said, "We can handle it." Yes, I told her I was going to quote her. And Tiffany was like, well, we've been dealing with white fragility, and now we're dealing with unity fragility, and it's a good thing. And that was so beautiful. It is really important for us to examine our own shadow side, because my first inclination as I'm reading these thinkers is, well, but if you knew about unity and the direction that unity went, you would probably have a change of heart and change your mind, and you would sort of make exceptions for your blanket statements about religion. And really, all that's doing is forcing them into my paradigm, forcing these atheists into my brand of theism. But our work here for this Lenten season is to get out of our own brand of theism and to sort of dabble in, dip a toe in, if you will, or jump right in. I know some of you are jumping right in to these different types of atheism. So when I find myself wanting to do that and say, but not us, that's when I stop and say, okay, let me listen and let me take them seriously. And so the first one I want to talk to you about is Emma Goldman. And she talks about the importance of theism, of religion, is that it's all about bringing the thinking mind and the heart together, that we must be self-aware beings, which is a common thread that you'll hear, self-awareness. We talk about consciousness and self-awareness too, don't we? Okay, so this is what she says. She characterizes theism as theory of speculation, okay? And atheism as science of demonstration. Well, our brand of theism is all about demonstration. We say that all the time. So let's listen. Let's keep listening without forcing her into our theism. Let's listen to her atheism. It sounds so much like what we say, but she's calling it atheism, science of demonstration. And she says that the one, theism, hangs in the metaphysical clouds of the beyond, while the other has its roots firmly in the soil. And I'm like, but wait, but we practice metaphysics. Yes, but we are all about how do we be God in the world? How do we express the divine in the world? So come on, we're not just airy-fairy, woo-woo kind of people. We are all about being grounded and being firmly planted in the soil. But I got to quiet that voice. And take her paradigm seriously. And so we're going to keep going into Hegel. So last week we talked about Anselm, who talked about God beyond reality. Hegel says it's all in your head, our head. It's all in our head. Religion, God. Religion is simply a way to overcome this split of self where we experience that we are connected in some way, but that we are also isolated and separate. So that Hegel talks about self-awareness and self-consciousness as a result of being observed. So the fact that we are observed by another is what illuminates our self-awareness. And because we can see that another sees us and that we see the other, we also can see ourselves in each other. In that way, we are connected. But then we also have this experience, this very real experience of separation. So Hegel says that religion is created to fix that split. It's our effort to get over that split, to be able to explain how we are both connected and how we also feel separation, and to sort of make us whole again and put us back together. And I mean, okay, that's a valid argument, I would say. Feuerbach, who came after Hegel, he really takes it into the mind. It's all in your mind, that Hegel said. He says that religion left to its own is a dream of the human mind, and the heart and essence of religion believes nothing else than the truth and divinity of human nature. What? Not of God, but the truth and divinity of human nature. Sounds very unity. Feuerbach says, let the mystics have the God beyond the God, because that God, that perfect God that is beyond comprehension, that is greater than even our own imagination, we need that God so that we can project. It's like it becomes a big projection screen. All of the ideals of humanity, everything that is the best of what we think we are or what we could be, the ideals of love and mercy and justice, we project that onto this God concept, that we need it. So Feuerbach says, let them have it, because it becomes useful. But instead of depositing all of these ideals onto the God concept, like a bank account that we just keep putting all of these great ideas and ideals, this vision of justice and mercy, we put it up onto God like a bank account. He says we need to withdraw and put it back into earth, and we need to embody it. So the idea is that, excuse me for just one second. The idea is that the ritual and religion, like the communion, the bread and the wine, it's not about the communion ritual. The bread and the wine must become food and drink for the hungry. You know, and we've heard this, like, before you talk to someone about, you know, their religious beliefs and, you know, their sense of healing and wholeness, if they're hungry, you got to give them a sandwich. Sometimes people just need a sandwich, and then we can get into those other higher needs. And so it's all about bringing like the best of what we think we can be, get it out of the God idea and bring it into the idea of humanity. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of on board with that. I'm totally on board with that. And it fits with our brand of theism, but that's not what they're saying. They're not talking about theism. They're talking about atheism. So I got to keep listening. We got to keep listening. Feuerbach says that all of theology is anthropology. It's all in our head, that what we make up as our ideas of the divine and of God is really our ideas of humanity. Oh, man. So then comes Karl Marx, who was influenced by Hegel and Feuerbach. Karl Marx says that religion is the opiate of the masses. Surely you've heard this quote before, because it works to relieve suffering in the world by giving us hope, an idea of something greater, an ideal world for which we can hope and long for. So it lifts our minds away from our suffering, at least temporarily. He suggests that we get rid of religion so that we can honestly look at our own suffering and do something about it. All right. Thank you, Marx. What we begin to hear, excuse me, in this kind of atheism is so it's like my body is even having a response speaking to this. Like, it's like, no, stop saying these words. It hurts. But this kind of atheism actually requires theism. It requires a belief in God in order to have something on which to project our ideals, some sort of safe place to project these ideals and then bring them back and embody them. So it's not the kind of atheism we've been talking about where it's a rejection of God. It requires a God concept. And that makes it all the more confusing, because now I'm like, but is it atheism then? Okay, we're going to get to the questions later. Let me continue. So we're going to go back to Emma Goldman. And so Emma Goldman, woman, she was born in Russia, immigrated to the United States. She also lived in Europe and other places. And in her time, she was called the most dangerous woman in America. The most dangerous woman in America. She was an anarchist. And she was brilliant and a prolific writer, and she had lots of dangerous ideas, and she was also a political activist. So, she was engaging in behaviors that were, dangerous, we'll just say. But she also, her brand of anarchy was all about religious freedom, liberating us from the trappings of religion and Christianity. Now, again, these people are living in a time where Christianity was, openly oppressive to women, to African Americans. It was used to justify slavery and also LGBTQ oppression. I mean, all of the oppressions, like Christianity was not really in its finest hour during this time. So I think it's important to keep that in mind. But also Emma Goldman, she was known as, in her time, not only the first woman, but the first person in America to openly defend the LGBTQ community, which of course was not called that then, which is called homosexuality. And also gender variations. I didn't even know that someone in that time was writing about it who is not coming at it from a scientific perspective, but just as a socio-political perspective. She talked about gender variations and was saying, like, it's ridiculous that people who have different sexual preferences or gender variations are not protected and respected and utilized. So, which I guess makes sense coming from an anarchist, because they're wanting sort of personal responsibility. They're wanting people to embody their ideals and live them out without the construct and requirement of government. So it makes sense in that way. But so this is her flavor of who she is in the world. And she wants us to bring forward the best of who we are, which is what they are all saying, which is also what we say, by the way. It's also what we say. Okay. So our brand of theism is sounding so much like this brand of atheism, which is not a rejection of God. It's all about us coming into ourselves, coming into our own humanity. Because if we can think it, if we can see it, we can be it. If we can see it with the mind's eye, if we can have the idea, then we can express it, which is what Gandhi said, which is what Mother Teresa said, which is what Martin Luther King Jr. said. That's what Charles and Myrtle Fillmore said. It's what we say. So what is the point of this kind of atheism? But to stop using God as a comfort. So Sigmund Freud, here's our last one that we're going to get to. Sigmund Freud talks about religion as illusion, not delusion. So he had his delusion ideas, which is something that you imagine that is in conflict with reality. But illusion is something you imagine that may or may not be true, but could be true. Not in conflict with reality. So Freud talks about religion as illusion, may or may not be true, is not in conflict with reality, but that again, it becomes religion for Freud becomes all about wish fulfillment, that our deepest, oldest, most ancient desires are to be protected, to be safe, to have moral order in our communities, and to have some sense of an afterlife or eternity, some eternal sense to being. And religion fixes all of that. Religion offers us a loving Father, which we've expanded beyond that, but in his words, a loving Father that keeps us safe and protected for all of our existence in this life and after. It creates moral order in our communities, in our societies, in our homes, and it provides us some kind of paradigm for an afterlife or for eternal being of the soul. Convenient, Freud says. Religion is convenient. It conveniently comforts us, and it takes us out of the unknown, basically by saying that everything can be explained through God, which is unexplainable. Like, doesn't even make sense, but then it makes perfect sense. But that puts us actually into a state of not knowing, and that this state of not knowing becomes comfortable to us because we don't have to take responsibility for it. We just leave it with God. Well, I don't know, but God knows. Like, we say that, right? Daniel Nahmod wrote a song and we played it. I don't need to know, God knows. And Freud's like, yeah, you're just comforting yourself. Hegel and Feuerbach are saying you're just talking about, you're using your projection upon God, that this wisdom, this all-knowing wisdom is with the divine, and then relieving yourself of responsibility that you don't need to know because God knows. This kind of burns. It burns because of how we practice spirituality, and they're coming right for us. Again, they're coming right for our beliefs and our words and our habits. I'll even call them habits, our practices. And so it reminds me, if you remember back in January when we talked about toxic positivity and platitudes, and I think this is a real call to go deeper. It's not just the platitudes. It's even when we genuinely mean something, to question what's beneath that and how we mean it and how we are using whatever the it is to comfort ourselves rather than to show up as God with skin on. So here are my questions. Can I use both my thinking mind and my heart to more fully embody and even believe the possibility that all perfection that I can imagine, everything I hold as the kingdom of heaven, is it truly possible that it is in me for no other reason than I can imagine it? If I can imagine it outside of me, then is it possible that all of that exists within me? And you might be thinking, yeah, but that's what we talk about all the time, is that we need to see our higher selves. We need to see ourselves as whole. We need to hold that in. But I'm asking us to take it deeper, beyond just this perfect construct of religion that we have crafted to meet us at every point of discomfort. And can we get uncomfortable and allow the discomfort? Because if I can imagine it and leave it in this God, what if I remove that sort of guarantor of all that is possible that I call God or the divine or spirit or universe? If I remove that guarantor and it's just me and it's just you, can I still see all of that perfection? That's the first question, parts 1, 2, and 3. Can I stop? Question 2. Can I bring myself to stop waiting on God to bless me, to take responsibility for my consciousness and my self-awareness? Can I examine my reliance on platitudes like God's timing, divine order, to comfort me in my suffering? And can I rather make a choice to take action that will create the outcome I desire? So where do we let ourselves off the hook by saying, well, it's all in God's timing? So we're just going to sit back and wait and trust. It's all in divine order, so I don't need to do anything. I just need to wait upon the Lord. He shall renew my strength. Can I move myself to action to do the thing that needs to happen and remove the guarantor, the God idea that might provoke laziness or might actually give a place for me to lay my insecurities so that I don't have to leave my comfort zone? Our Unity teachings, again, support this kind of thinking. I'm actually not saying anything new. I'm not saying anything I haven't said either during our Fall Faith series or during our New Thought series, but I'm saying it with a different sort of tone to it, a different sort of, a different understanding, surely on my part, that the God of my understanding serves as a source of comfort and convenience. I'm not saying that as a blanket statement, But what I'm saying is that could be true to varying degrees in different parts of my psyche, different parts of my belief system, different parts of my heart, even. So my work is to unpack that. My work is to find it. Where am I using the God idea for comfort and convenience and shirking my own responsibility? So, where in this line of thinking is the divine? That's a fresh question. Like, forget the answers you thought you knew before we started this. Like, don't come forward with that, right? We laid that all down. In this line of thinking, where is the divine? And if my answer is still within, and if God is me, as me, through me, but also then thinks like me, then is the God of my understanding simply a convenience? What do I do with an idea of God, a God concept that would be entirely different than anything I would think about? Like, even in this country, we have freedom of religion. I can go to any church I want to go to. You can go anywhere. Find the place that most closely aligns with your belief system. This is what they're saying. And it's like all over the place. That yes, we look for the God of our convenience. The God who thinks like us, maybe even looks like us. The God that would do the things that we would do. That's all the materialists are saying, that God, the God idea, is just a massive projection of humanity. And that science, the more evolved we get with science, the more we become God-like. So these are the questions that I want us to really work with this week. Honestly. And without a knowing about it, like be in the unknowing. Where is God in this line of thinking? That if God is just in my head and just a fabric of my imagination for the purpose of comfort and convenience, then who am I? And how am I to be in the world? And then come back to the question, where is God in all of that? Thank you for being in this series with me. Thank you so much for your bravery, your boldness to work with these questions and these ideas. I would like to bring us into a time of meditation, which is simply going to be a time of silence. But Fred, would you come on and play us some music? So with hearts and minds wide open, we simply take this time to be.
all is well. I can rest. I am safe. All is well. All is well. I can rest. I am safe. All is well. Join me. All is well. I can rest. I am safe. All is well. All is well. I can rest. I am safe. All is well.
All is well. We are safe. We can rest in these ideas. We can rest in the presence of one another and the strength of our community, bold enough to take on this material. So let's welcome back to the screen Amy Steinberg for the comfort of music.
Morning, Overland Park. So happy to be here with you. This is called Purpose. I've been through the desert. I've walked in the ocean. Climbed up a mountain and I've sang in the wind. I've cried out in the moonlight and I've drank that potion. Wished in the fountain and I've lived in sin. Hallelujah. Ha. I keep searching for an answer to make me complete. But every time I think that I found it, the ground shifts under my feet. What I know is every moment is a blessing. And every love is like a light. And beauty comes with every sunrise. And living is the purpose, living is the purpose, living is the purpose. That's right. Living is the purpose of life. Whoa, yeah. I talk to the goddess, lie in the night. I dance with the devil, and I've screamed at the storm. I've held hands with the holy, I've touched the divine. I've plucked every petal, and again I've been born. I keep searching for an answer to make me complete. But every time I think that I found it, the ground shifts under my feet. What I know is every moment is a blessing right now. And every love is like a light. And beauty comes with every sunrise. And living is the purpose, living is the purpose, living is the purpose. Say it with me, living is the purpose. Come on. Living is the purpose, living is the purpose, living is the purpose of life. Oh yeah. Oh. And every kiss is a wonder. And every heart is like a shooting star. And you are perfect, you are perfect in this moment. So live out loud, live out loud, live out loud, live out loud, live out loud. And just be who you are. Just be who you are. Yeah. I said, be who you are, be who you are. You got to be who you are. 'Cause living is the purpose of life. Living.
Absolutely love it. Living is the purpose of life. That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Reverend Jackie, for another thought-provoking, inspiring service. You leave us, as always, with a lot to be thinking about, contemplating, and taking into our hearts and our minds. So thank you for all of that. So, a time for a few announcements. The UCOP Kids and the YOU offer an opportunity to connect each Sunday during the Zoom meetings at 11 o'clock following the service. Information on how to join can be located in our Friday e-news, or you can check out the UCUP Facebook page for details on how to join either meeting. And of course, we would love to see your kids join in on both of those services. You can also check out the weekly e-news to keep up with other events and happenings like the upcoming Good Friday service, which will be taking place on April 2nd at 7 o'clock. A special musical guest will be Kelly Hunt and also Alina Ross, and they will be joining Reverend Jackie for her message in the garden. So you don't want to miss our Good Friday service on April 2nd at 7 o'clock. We'd love to see you there. Well, via Zoom. We'd love to see everybody via Facebook or YouTube. And as Reverend Jackie mentioned earlier, we would like you to take just a few moments to update your contact information and your membership information so that we as a community are up to date and ready for our annual meeting in June. So you can click on the link from the e-news, or you can go right to the website at www.ucop.org. You can also go to the website to sign up for the e-news, as we always tell you, if you're not already receiving it. So we'd love to have those updates. It sounds like everybody in the church is getting prepared for our annual meeting, and that would help out a lot. And now let's close our service with prayer, our mission, and a final song from Amy.
Thank you, Tiffany. Reverend Carrie, will you lead us in the prayer for protection?
I sure will. Let's take a deep breath and simply land in this moment of affirming that the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, and the presence of God, whatever it is, whoever it is, enfolds us.
And wherever we are, God is. And so let us close with our mission statement as we work to embody all that we believe and to be the presence here on earth. Through our mission statement, Unity Church of Overland Park transforms lives and empowers people to make a difference in the world. So please join us here after service for coffee time, coffee, chai, tea time, I should say. Thank you, Deb Philby. You see the Zoom ID there on the screen. We had a little bit of a hiccup last week, so if you weren't able to join, please know it wasn't you, it was us, and that has been resolved. So please feel free to copy down that Zoom ID. It's also in your e-news from this morning, and please join us for our wonderful time of connection. And then join us next week. We'll have Terry Swope with us for music, and we'll be going forward with this series and the death of God theology, which is not as scary as it sounds. We're not going to kill God, but basically theism and atheism really come together again. Either God exists and therefore cannot die, or God does not exist and therefore cannot die. So we'll dive into that next week. Hold on to your hats. Let us close now with Amy Steinberg. You are the light. Blessings.
Such a pleasure to be with you, Overland Park. This is You Are the Light. My eyes are wide and open. My eyes can see. My mind is full of knowing. My mind believes are the light. You are the light. You are the light. You are the light. Have an amazing day. My eyes are wide and open. My eyes can see. My mind is full of knowing. My mind believes. I am awake. I am awake. And once you know where your freedom lies, you can't go back and close your eyes. The truth it cannot be denied. You are the light, you are the light, you are the light. You are the light, you are the light, you are the light. Yeah. That's right. My heart is clear and growing. My heart can see. And my soul is full of knowing. My soul believes. I am awake. I am awake. And once you know where your freedom lies, you can't go back and close your eyes. The truth it cannot be denied. You are the light, you are the light, you are the light. That's right. You are the light, you are the light, you are the light. Yeah. Once you know where your freedom lies, you can't go back and close your eyes. The truth it cannot be denied. You are the light, you are the light, you are the light. Sing it with me. You are the light, you are the light, you are the light. That's your part. Goes like that. You are the light, you are the light, you are the light. Sing it with me, come on. You are the light, you are the light, you are the light. You are the light, you